Welcome to the Geobreeze Travel Podcast, a show for anyone wanting to level up their travel hacking lifestyle. I'm your host, Julia Menez. I'm a travel hacker, coach, speaker, Filipino-American ENTJ who loves solid travel gear and using shortcuts on spreadsheets. On this show, I'm on a mission to bring you travel hackers from all walks of life to help you level up your travel hacking game. We dive into credit cards, miles, points, strategy, mindset, and the secrets behind how to travel the world for next to no cost. So let's get hacking. Hello, travel hackers. Today's featured guest is Jonathan Herschaff from Travel Dance Save. Jonathan is an economist and former financial crimes investigation consultant with the U.S. Securities and Exchange Commission. On the side, he operates an Amazon store and shares with us today how he is able to treat his travels around the world as business expenses and tax write-offs for his store. Please note, Jonathan and I are not certified accountants or tax professionals. Everything in this episode is just for entertainment and inspirational purposes only, and you should not take any of this as official tax advice. All of this is just a very not funny comedy show about travel hacking. Enjoy! Hey, Jonathan, welcome to the Geobreeze Travel Podcast. We are so excited to have you here today.
This is pretty exciting for me as well. This is the first podcast I've ever done, so it's really exciting. Right. Thank you for having me.
Of course. So tell us a little bit about yourself. How did you get into travel hacking? How did you even hear about this hobby? What were your first credit cards? Give us all the background.
Yeah, sure. So I think one of the first times I ever picked up on a travel hack was almost by accident when I wanted to travel after finishing my undergraduate education. And I knew I had a job waiting for me, but I had no money, right? Because I had just finished college. And so I found some credit card that had a 0% interest for a year and went traveling and put every, 3 weeks in the Greek islands. And I put every single penny I had into that credit card. And then I was able to come back, start my job and slowly start paying that credit card balance down. So it was this opportunity to basically lend money to myself. And then fast forward a few years, as I got out of graduate school, I wanted to do the exact same thing. And again, I had very little money after 6 years of grad school, but I wanted to do an epic 2-month trip around China, Japan, Southeast Asia. And so I grabbed one of these credit cards that I could have 0% interest for a really long time. But this time I realized that there were also other cards that I could get points off of and then do free balance transfers to this interest-free one. So it just started to click that these credit cards are actually really useful tools for traveling. And then I think beyond that, what started getting me down in the points and the perks was I can't remember for the life of me how I stumbled upon Amex Platinum or just wanting to go to these lounges, but I had heard about these Centurion lounges that they looked amazing, that you get free drinks, free food, and you just show up at the airport and you hang out in these great areas instead of at the gate. And so I grabbed an Amex Platinum right before a trip out to San Francisco, got to use the lounge on each side. I'm sitting there having, free drinks away from all the commotion, free meals, get to plug in your chargers, you plug in your phone and charge everything without having to fight over, sitting on the floor and plug something in. And it was just amazing. And I think that sort of started the journey into more travel hacking stuff. So Amex Platinum, still have it.
That is definitely one of my favorite cards. I would say it's a level 2 card for when somebody's more used to travel hacking, then Amex Platinum is a really good one to grab. Do you remember what your first travel hacking card was, or when you were starting out with points and miles?
Yeah, actually, so I had Amex Platinum actually before I got into the points and miles. And so if we skip the whole 0% interest stuff, which is a separate tool, but I got the Amex Platinum, not so much for point generation. It's actually not a great card for point generation, but I got it more for the lounge and the status access. The first time I really got into the credit cards for points and churning was, I think what most people do is the Chase Sapphire Preferred. And this was really exciting because we took that, signed up for the bonus. I think it was actually free the first year. So it's $95 a year. That is waived. You spend $5,000 and we got 50,000 points. That 50,000 points, I then transferred to British Airways, was a travel partner, which I then used to book an American Airlines flight from New York City to Brazil. So it was a $1,200 nonstop flight from New York City to Rio de Janeiro. And I got it for exactly the amount of the welcome bonus for a Chase Sapphire preferred card that didn't even have a fee in the first year. And you just look at this and you're like, I just got a free $1,200 flight for nothing. And that really blew my mind. And that, was probably the first one that really started focusing on point generation.
Chase Sapphire Preferred is such a good card for anybody starting out at first. Unfortunately, now there is a fee in the first year. The $95 fee isn't waived anymore. But they have they've raised the sign-up bonus, which is, it's a little bit of a trade-off, but still an excellent card for anybody for starting out in the points game.
Yeah.
So speaking of starting out in the points and miles game, were there any mistakes that you made early on that you want to warn other people? Do not do this. This was an immature move that I made. Learn from my mistakes.
One of the things that I probably jumped a little too quickly into some of these cards without waiting for ideal welcome bonuses, the really big bonuses. And so when I got the Amex Platinum, it was with a 40,000 point bonus. And I really didn't do any research online. I wasn't looking around for, hey, does anyone have a referral link, or how often there are other bigger bonuses available? And it probably was within a year from there, you start hearing everyone getting these target for 100,000 points. And outside of the welcome bonus, if you don't have your own business, grabbing an extra 60,000 points is really difficult. I mean, that's a lot of money to be putting on the card. And I think I would have been a little bit more patient in waiting for these optimal welcome bonuses, especially on cards where you can only get the bonus once in a lifetime, such as Amex Platinum, or now with the Sapphires, like once every 48 months.
Yeah, the sign-up bonuses are huge. Like, as far as 80-20 tips go for where you can get most of your travel hacking bonuses, sign-up bonuses is where it's going.
Yeah.
It's where it's going to come from.
And just something on the sign-up bonus, a lot of people get really worried about their credit score from having too many cards open. And that's actually something. So I have something close to like an 840 credit score. And, the only time I've ever really seen my credit score drop 10 or 20 points at any given time was during the days of the 0% interest cards, when I was like really rolling up debt. But otherwise, getting one or two extra credit cards, it really has never affected my score.
Yeah, same. My credit score dances around 800 most of the time. So as long as you can keep paying off your balance in full every month, never charge interest, always have a good payment history. The Amex Platinum is really good for credit utilization as well, because they give such high credit limits most of the time. If you're qualifying for the Amex Platinum, and having such a low utilization will really help your credit score as well. As far as getting a lot of points on the Amex Platinum, it's definitely hard after the sign-off bonus, but what they're good at tends to be flights, which get 5x. And then also, you mentioned the lounges are a really nice part. I like to use them shopping offers, because sometimes they'll just say things like, oh, you get $100 off of a $100 spend at Dell. So we both got a couple of Fitbits on that deal.
That was nice. That was nice. The other thing, just to give another quick shout out to Amex, is it is actually really powerful from a consumer protection to have someone like that powerful in your corner. Almost any time that I felt that I was ripped off by a business, which happens enough times, unfortunately, and calling up Amex, and they have just taken care of it every single time. And it really takes a big load off.
What's an example of a time that a business has ripped you off and Amex came to the rescue?
So I had one time, we were staying a 4-day stay in a hotel in Salvador, for example. And when we got there, there was no air condition. The sheets were stained with something that didn't look very nice. We were getting bitten by flies the entire night. And at one point, after the first day, we were like, this is like awful. We can't sleep here. This is just an absolute nightmare. And we offered to pay for, and the hotel was literally empty. There was nobody else in there except for us. And we offered to pay for 2 of the days, even though we only stayed once rather than all 4, because it was such horrible conditions. And the person just refused. And, and so we contacted Amex. I took pictures of all the broken fans that were in there, the windows that were open, the stained sheets. And Amex just gave me all my money back in one shot. And I actually told Amex I was happy to pay for 2 nights. And they said, absolutely not. You're getting everything back. I thought that was pretty amazing.
That is amazing. So Amex Platinum, great consumer protection. Yeah. So you mentioned you went to grad school for 6 years. Can you tell us a little bit about what you do from your day job and then also any side gigs and how you incorporate travel hacking and your travel hacking hobbies into both your day job and your side gigs?
Sure. So I was in graduate school. I was doing a PhD in economics. Right after school, I came out and I was working for the SEC for 4 years, kind of helping track down like financial criminals and hopefully put them away. After a few years, I decided to switch back into the private sector. I'm now an economist for a small e-commerce startup called Collage.com, and which is actually pretty interesting because my side hustle, which I've gotten involved in the travel hacking, is I travel around to all these countries and I find kind of unique items abroad. I bring them back and I sell them online on like Amazon and Etsy and eBay. And so there's a lot of learnings that I've taken from my side hustle and I applied to my job in terms of like helping them with ad bids on Amazon, and I help them set up an Etsy shop. But then likewise, I've learned techniques from them that I thought have helped me with my own business and how I think about things. So it's actually quite a bit of overlap there. And what's also really nice about my side hustle is that I basically have made it so that all of my international trips, because I go out and I buy these unique items and I come back and sell them, these become business trips. And I've had this kind of personal goal to basically tax write off my life, where all the things that I want to do, I want them to be part of my business, essentially the side hustle, so that I get tax write-offs for doing the things I love. And like I'm going in 1 week down to Colombia, and I already have set up some communications with someone who is a local entrepreneur down there, and I'm going to be buying bracelets and bags and necklaces and things like that, and then bringing them back to the United States, selling them online, and that's just going to make this whole trip a business trip. And if I get to have some fun while I'm doing it, I get to have fun.
Nice. So 2 questions. How do you find these entrepreneurs that you connect with in order to be your suppliers for stuff that you later sell on Amazon and Etsy? And then also, do they accept credit card? And so are you going to get miles off these different purchases?
So the credit card, almost never. In fact, I don't think there's been a single time that I haven't had to pay cash. It's just the way it is in some of these countries. The other thing is so one is when I go down there, I actually really enjoy going to local market, and it's a great way to spend an afternoon. And so I go into some of these markets and I talk to all the people who are running the booths, and I look for people who are making like handmade items. And if there's a whole bunch of things that I like, I start to talk to them. And usually they quote me a price for 1 or 2 things, but then I just tell them what I'm doing. I said, I'm actually interested in taking these back to the United States and selling them locally. What kind of price would you give for a bulk discount? And a lot of times that bulk discount, they start dropping prices by 50, 60%. And if you have a number that you want to hit and, you buy enough of them, they're usually willing to go for a much better price than the first market offer. So I find them usually just walking around.
But you said this person in Colombia, you've already started.
Yes. So I've been to Colombia before. And when I went down there the first time, I again was walking around where all these locals were selling goods out like in local parks and markets. And there was one person who I liked a bunch of her stuff and the prices were right. And so after I bought 100 bracelets right on the spot, we exchanged WhatsApp information. And I was actually supposed to go back down there again in April but then COVID hit, of course. And so my flight ended up getting pushed back about 7 months, but we've kept in touch, and I let her know that I'm coming down there. So she sent me a bunch of pictures of the things that she has. And, I was able to send her some money just through PayPal so she could get started making the things, and they'll basically be ready by the time I get down there.
You mentioned PayPal, and have you tried to use PayPal Key yet to pay her with that? Because that can give you a lot of points too.
I have not. That is interesting. The only time I've used it was as basically an international transfer through Zoom, XOOM, and it basically just sent cash to their bank account. Is there a fee? Like if we use the PayPal Key, would they be charged like an extra 3%, or would I?
It depends on if they're registered as a business. It would be just the normal PayPal keys. So what PayPal Key does right now for fourth quarter 2020, the Chase Freedom Flex offer, or the Chase Freedom, but a lot of people don't have that one anymore. They'll offer 5x points on special categories. And this quarter, the categories are Walmart or PayPal. And you can actually hook up PayPal Key so that you can hook up your Chase Freedom Flex into the background, and then PayPal Key will generate a different credit card number that you can give to her, and it'll register as a PayPal transaction, but it will take money from your Chase Freedom Flex card. So then you're getting the points by paying through PayPal.
Interesting. I guess I always just imagined that anytime I use a credit card with PayPal, they were taking that 2.9%. But if you're getting 5x points, even if they took 2.9%, it would still be worth it. Easily. Maybe next time.
So I looked this up post-recording. As of the release date of this podcast episode, if you are sending money to someone through PayPal as a friend, you do not incur any fees, and neither do they. If you are sending payment as a business transaction, they will incur a 2.9% transaction fee plus 30 cents, which they may or may not pass on to you. So you buy a lot of these things either with PayPal, so you can get points that way, or with cash, and then you bring them back to the United States, sell them through Amazon and Etsy, get the tax write-off. Is there anywhere in the transaction that you're getting a lot of points?
Right now, the points are really just coming more off of like the office supplies and selling. So actually, I just learned this. I am actually really upset at myself for not knowing this before, but Amazon. So it actually costs quite a bit of money to sell some of these things on Amazon, and you have to be able to mark up the prices a lot from what you bought it, because you need to pay for advertising. Amazon takes a 15 to 20% cut. Just mailing things out usually costs about $3 because you need to have things in a package. So if you're buying these small goods, the markup is quite a bit that you just to break even. But I just found out that you can pay for your ads on Amazon while it defaults to just taking it out of your like own account that they give you the money for. You can change that setting so it comes out of your credit card. So right now, I just put my ad spend on my Chase Inc. Preferred, which I think gets me 3x on it. So I'm getting ad spend that way. But then also there's all these other purchases that I have that are related to it. I mean, I'm constantly buying mailing supplies and things for like printer labels and just, camera equipment, because I've got to take pictures, which is also a nice bonus for a tax write-off as well as the points. And so it's been more on the supplies and now on the Amazon ads that I get a lot more points from doing this as well.
Do you have the Chase?
I do not. Should I have both? Or do you prefer the cash over the Ink Preferred, the business?
If you're doing shipping, then the Ink Preferred is better. But if you're buying office supplies, you can get 5x at places like Office Depot or Staples or Staples.com using the Chase Ink Cash. And so I actually just use that one to buy gift cards at Staples all the time so that I can get 5x whenever I want to, or whenever they have the fee-free Visa gift cards, then I'll just buy those from Staples using my Chase Ink Cash, and I get.
Oh, okay. I think I've been so used to like running out of envelopes or running out of supplies, and then all of a sudden I'm like I just go on Amazon. I'm like, I just need this like 1-day delivery or 2-day delivery, and so Amazon has been really helpful. But I think Office Depot or Staples, I could probably just order something online, then walk down the street and pick it up. So that's pretty good idea too.
You mentioned you have to mark up the items that you buy quite a bit. What kind of margins are we talking about for what you can buy something for in Colombia versus what you can sell it on?
Yeah, so I guess the point being is that there's a lot of costs in there. So, for example, I had gone out to both Nairobi and to Colombia, and I bought things and to Thailand as well. And I bought things usually about $2, and I'll get a bunch of these, but only if you buy 100 to 200 or more. So I'll get them for about $2. I then usually have to sell them for at least 10 just to break even. And so if I can sell them for about 12 or 13, I'm making about $1 or $2 for each one that I sell. But I've got a lot of things selling now. So start, getting a couple dollars on each one starts to add up. And especially now I've been sending more and more of my stuff to Amazon Prime. So it might take me a weekend to box everything up, label it, send it out to Amazon Prime. But then, I may have like 600 or 700 items that then sell from that one shipment out to Amazon that I don't have to touch again. And each one I'm getting, maybe a couple dollars on.
Okay, that was going to be my next question. Is your just a warehouse?
I have a corner that is basically just boxes of stuff. I'm about to get I've got a nice rooftop area, and in there I have one storage unit that I've generally have used for just like household stuff, but I think I'm about to get a second storage unit for whatever I come back from this next trip from Colombia, because I'm going to say, rather than getting these like smaller little bracelets, I think I'm going to go into like bags or some other like larger things, some shirts or something like that. And these things take up a lot more space. So I think it's going to be storage unit on the roof.
Is there a possibility for tax write-off for things that don't sell, where you have to take a look?
Yeah. Oh, yeah, absolutely. So one of the things that when I talked about, so first of all, on the tax stuff, so I'm not a CPA. So disclaimer, this is not legal tax advice. If you want to do this, you should talk to someone first, as I have, and try and get, make sure that everything that you do does have a sign off from a tax professional. So one of the things that I was told that, when we have these tax laws, they're for business expenses, but it doesn't mean you have to have a good business, right? Like people have bad businesses all the time. That doesn't mean you don't get to have tax write-offs for the activities you do. And actually, one of the reasons why I thought this whole thing was almost a no-brainer was I said, if I take, one trip and it's, $2,000 and I buy $500 worth of goods there, and I can, even if I sell nothing, the tax write-off on that $2,500 trip is basically going to pay for the entire $500 of goods that you're getting. So, I mean, it was like, even if you sell nothing, you're breaking even. There are some caveats to have these losses go against your own wages. There's a difference between active income and passive income. So passive income means if you don't do anything with this and you just want to try and take the loss, it has to go against passive income. That could be like selling stocks or something where you're not really like putting in effort. If you want these to be deductions against like your wages, like your day job, you have to put in a rule of thumb about 100 hours of work per year to have it classified as active income, which is easy once you start doing this.
Nice. Okay, so the tip we got out of that was definitely consult a tax professional. But if you're putting in at least 100 hours of work, which once your apartment has a mini warehouse for Amazon goods that you purchased abroad, you can easily hit that 100 hours. Goods that you buy in markets internationally will sell for a huge margin on Amazon. And even if you don't sell much, still okay to break even just from the tax write-offs, as long as you've consulted a tax professional.
Yeah, I don't want to say that they will definitely sell for large markups. It was actually more of you need to sell them for large markups to break even, absent the tax write-offs. But fortunately, the tax write-offs pretty much make it unnecessary, even if you lose money the other way.
Fascinating. But for somebody who has previously worked in financial crimes, I'm interested to hear, is there any type of travel hacking activity that you have ever heard of that people do where, from like an economist standpoint or like an SEC standpoint, you're like, that's going to get you in trouble one day, and you should maybe not.
So I think the biggest thing is it would be like lying, right? So to my knowledge, there's nothing that says to work you have to be working 40 hours a week. I mean, there's whole books out there about a 4-hour work week. There's nothing that legally says a business has to be profitable, but just the expenses that you put down have to be real expenses, right? I mean, if I went out on this trip and, for the most part, I'm not giving anyone receipts, unless you were going to get audited. So theoretically, I could go and tell my tax guy, yeah, I spent $10,000 on this trip, and, it's a mostly cash-based thing. But that is where it's going to really start getting into the level of fraud. So I really make sure that I save receipts and I have electronic documentation for as many expenses as possible. And I'm only putting things on there that are actual trip expenses. So if you were to start inflating those numbers, you could get into trouble pretty quickly.
That makes sense. What if somebody's trying to take first class flights down to Colombia? They buy 10 bracelets. They have no intention of this actually ever being a thing. They just want to be like, I just want a tax write-off. My first class.
Okay. So I remember the first conversation I had with my tax accountant about this, and he said, maybe really you want to avoid having too many red flags that would cause an IRS audit, because you really don't want to go through the audit where they're asking you all these detailed questions, and you have to provide receipts for every single thing that you have claimed, even if many of them are in cash and it can be really hard to come by. So you really want to avoid that. So he told me, look, if you got one trip, it's a couple $1,000s, and it's the first year, and you really don't have a lot of revenue for your business, you're probably going to be okay. It's probably not going to raise too many red flags for an audit. On the other hand, if you start trying to write off $10,000, $20,000 here for a business that's only showing, $0 to $200 revenue, that could start raising some red flags. One of the reasons also why I keep selling more and more things, even if I'm not making a lot of profit on it, is I'm increasing revenue, right? So if I sell, $5,000, $10,000 more worth of goods, even if I'm only making a little bit of profit on it, that's going to drive up the revenue of my business. And then it gives me a little bit more cover into what I'm doing, right? So like right now, I'm literally selling items that I picked up in Thailand, in Africa, in Kenya, in Brazil, in Colombia, in the Philippines. I'm sure I'm missing some places too, in Japan, in multiple cities in Brazil. And so Vietnam. And so it really is this international business. You never know legit what's going to take off. And so I feel like I have a true international business and I have enough revenues, even if the profits aren't enormous, but the revenues are there to show that it's a real business. And so, yeah, I hope that somewhat answers the question. You may be able to get away with it once. I wouldn't push it too many times, but if you can get the revenues up, it gives you more cover for it.
Makes sense. So takeaway from there, as long as you can get revenue, profits don't matter too much as far as what you can expense with it. But as far as being able to survive off of this on like your day-to-day life, that gets a little bit harder. This is better just for like tax write-off on your traveling and your hobbies and things like that. If you are trying to make a living off of reselling bracelets that you picked up abroad onto an Amazon store, it gets much harder.
Yeah, I would say it definitely gets much harder. One thing that is nice is my profits are starting to get to a point where I think in a couple years, if I was so inclined and if I totally wanted to quit my job here, I certainly wouldn't be able to afford living in the US. But could I get a small apartment in, Colombia, or could I get a small apartment in Thailand and just be on the income that I'm getting from this store? Maybe. It'd be close. And so if you were in this total digital nomad lifestyle and you were also getting revenues maybe from blogging, from, coaching, from some of these other things, it could be an extra line of income that could supplement it pretty well. I would say right now, this is bumping up my salary by about 10%. So it's like getting a 10% bonus.
Okay. So as you've traveled the world in search of all of these different goods to resell online, can you tell us about what is your favorite travel hacking redemption story? Have you traveled anywhere where you're like, I got really great flights and really great hotel deals?
Yeah. So, oh yeah, I forgot about that. So I've had my best success in China. And one of the things that was actually, it worked out really well. I can't remember what had happened, why suddenly we needed to change our flight schedule and get something new almost like last minute. But we were in China going domestic from one city to another, where it wasn't like a Hong Kong to Shanghai or Shanghai to Beijing. There was one of the smaller cities in there as well. And the flights, it was going to be $750 worth of flights. So one of the China Eastern, China Southern, one of those airlines. And went on, I just started reading about using a lot of the travel partners. And I started looking at like Air France, KLM, and I found that they were partners with one of these airlines, and they had an incredible, wound up getting $750 worth of domestic Chinese flights for 25,000 points. So about 3 points per, doing the Amex to KLM, and then using KLM to book like a China Eastern or China Southern Airlines. And it just really, really came in handy. And then also while in Shanghai, we were able to get 10,000 point nights to stay at a Courtyard Marriott, which incidentally had a executive lounge in a Courtyard, which they don't have here in the US. Through Amex Platinum, we had gold status. They upgraded us for gold status to have lounge access, even though you're not supposed to until you have platinum. But so for our 10,000 points a night, we had this lounge access in the Courtyard where we were getting free breakfast, free dinner, free cocktails with dinner. I mean, it was unbelievable. And also the person working there at the top was this really good guy, fun, and he like took us out for hot pot one night to like his favorite hot pot places. We got to know him. It was so much fun. Alan, if you're ever in the Courtyard Marriott, if you're ever in Shanghai, swing by and say hello to Alan in the Courtyard Marriott. Oh God, no! I think there's a lot. I don't know which one. I think there are a lot. Yeah. I'll have to figure out which one, but there's multiple.
Okay, so 10,000 points a night.
Crazy.
Crazy.
Marriott points. 10,000
Marriott points. So Marriott points like half a cent per point normally. So this is like $50-ish. Yeah. Super rounding right now, but $50 per night for executive lounge where you get breakfast and hot pot
and dinner and drinks. I mean, like they were setting out bottles of vodka, bottles of rum. They also had, it was a really nice mix of both sort of local Shanghai's cuisine, as well as some, classic American breakfast as well. It was fantastic. Yeah. Sorry. By the way, if you ever want to just really save money while you're traveling, I mean, it's probably not the healthiest thing in the world, but when you're staying at these hotels where you have the free breakfast, which is also the huge perk of Amex Platinum, getting those free breakfasts at Hilton properties and sometimes at Marriott. Sometimes I would just get to breakfast really early. I would eat these enormous meals. And then the rest of the day, maybe I just need a snack, like a light meal between lunch and dinner. And I'm pretty much good to go for the rest of the day. It might not be the healthiest thing, but you can definitely save money with it. Yes.
It's healthier to do that with breakfast than with dinner.
Yes.
You have to choose a meal to do that. Choose breakfast. I think both of us have at some point stayed at the DoubleTree in Kuala Lumpur, which is probably like the best.
That's right. I literally stayed there, I think, every day for 2 hours. And so the DoubleTree in Kuala Lumpur had 5 live cooking stations for local Malay food, Indian food, Chinese food, American food. There was one other one, maybe it was just like a dessert bar or something. And the food was just absolutely unbelievable. You have chefs preparing it, all these different styles right there for you. it was unbelievable. It was so good.
It's so good. And it's such an affordable hotel too. As far as, so Hilton points, it's sometimes difficult to get a good points per dollar redemption or value per point redemption in the US. But
do you remember what you
really
do you remember what you were getting about
all your Hilton points?
Value per point?
Wow. No, but it was probably close to 1 cent per.
I'm thrilled to get 0.6.
Crazy. All right, so let's go ahead and start wrapping up. So with all of the travel hacking knowledge and Amazon store knowledge and tax write-off knowledge that you have acquired, what would be your one-line?
So I would say, be bold. Just, take some more chances. It's one of the things I think sometimes for me, I can be a little too risk averse. I like to dip my toe in, see if it works, see if I get in trouble, and with this, I think you really just hit the ground running. Take some chances and just get started.
Excellent. And for people who are afraid to get started, there's so many people who can help you. I can help you. Jonathan can help you. Literally anybody else who's been featured on this podcast or will be featured on this podcast. All of their contact information is in the show notes of every episode. Just reach out to them, reach out to me. There is a world of travel hacking knowledge and of travel hackers who are willing to spread their.
We love to talk about this stuff. So we get together, we just swap stories all the time. And so if you're interested in this and you know someone who is interested in it, like Julia, just ask and we will start talking and rambling.
Absolutely. Yes. Okay. And as far as loving having people to talk about travel hacking with, can you nominate a travel hacking friend that you'd like to give a shout out to who has really good travel hacking advice? And
so I would like to nominate at Pennywise Traveler. It's Angel. What I like about Angel is that she attacks travel hacking in a very different way than I do. I tend to really go after the lounges and the perks and little kind of like taste of luxury, I almost call it. She is more of a point stacking machine where she really maximizes how many points she gets out of every single purchase and gets those to add up. And she's engaging and she's excited about it and happy to talk about all the different ways that every time she makes a purchase, she gets points from like 4 or 5 different avenues. And it's great. And it's inspiring.
For sure. I love talking to Angel about different travel hacks and stacks. And I've requested for her to make certain reels for me sometimes where I'm like, hey, I don't want to figure out how to stack these 4 things. Can you just make a tutorial for me and put it on your Instagram? And she'll say yes. Like almost any of us will do this. You can just ask us, hey, can you make an Instagram post that walks me through this exact thing? And we can either do that, show you that we have already done that and send you a link, or send you to a person who can do it better and to do content for you, because we're all looking for content ideas anyway. All right. So where can
I don't have a huge internet presence as much. I do have an Instagram at Travel Dance Save. Again, I think I have it most. I have some tips on there I put on occasionally. It's a little bit more of a diary and a photo diary and photo blog of my adventures, and also I have the travel stuff as tax write-offs, and I want to get the dancing in its tax write-offs too. And so I feel like that is helping as well. But I do have some things on there that hopefully would inspire.
So we talked about the tax write-offs a lot in this episode, but I feel like we didn't touch on the dance stuff at all. So real quick, tell us a little bit about your
so I have I've been into dancing for about 20 years, Latin partner dancing for about 20 years. I found salsa while I was studying abroad in Europe, fell in love, was into salsa dancing for about 10 years, switched into competitive ballroom, got out of competitive ballroom, and now I do a dance called Zouk, which is from Brazil. And one of the other things that I love about traveling and going to these places, not only do I usually find some of these, bracelets and necklaces and goods from there, but the dance lessons are so cheap. So I'm going to be going to Colombia and getting private dance lessons for, 15 to 20 US dollars for an hour. And they would normally cost well over 100, here in the US, and in New York, probably like 150. So it's just a phenomenal bonus. So I spend a lot of my days exploring markets and taking dance lessons and meeting the local dance community and going out with them.
Nice. And how do you incorporate that into?
So I'm still working out the dance part. So the sort of hoping that as part of Travel Dance Save, I'm looking for cover, hopefully, where these dance lessons can eventually be tax write-offs. But that is a conversation I'm preparing to have for 2020 with my tax guy. So, but I'm still working on that part.
Sounds good. Well, thank you so much for coming onto the podcast today, Jonathan. It's been so great having you, and this has been a really, really interesting episode, learning about how we can
write off your life. Thank you so much for having me. I always enjoy chatting with you, and this was a blast. Thank you.
Thank you. Take care. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode of the Geobreeze Travel Podcast. If any of the cards or other tools mentioned on today's call piqued your interest, please use the links in the show notes to apply or to learn more about any of the cards. Commissions earned from these signups help to support the podcast. Additionally, the single best travel hack I can recommend is finding friends who can show you about even more travel hacks, and it would mean the world to me if you could subscribe to this podcast and share it with a friend. And if you would like to meet even more travel hacking friends, come join one of our travel hanging hangouts. We discuss behind-the-scenes tips, celebrate each other's wins, and mostly just enjoy being around other people who enjoy this hobby just as much as you and I do. If you would like an invite to the next one, just head over to geobreezetravel.com/hangouts and sign up to be on the invite list. See you there, take care, and happy travels.